Good morning, everyone, or I guess good afternoon. Hang on one second. Let me get everything set up here and change my background out so it's not blurred. Alrighty, there you go. Um, Welcome. We're going to be getting started in just a couple of minutes. Please let me know in the chat if you can see me and hear me okay. I'm super excited to be talking about flying changes today. This is one of my all-time favorite topics, so I'm excited for this presentation, and I'm excited that you are here with me live. If you haven't yet, open up the chat and please put your name in there. Let me know where in the world you are watching from. I am in Southern California. I'm in the Ventura area. It is hot today. It already feels like summertime, which is good and bad, I guess. So hi, Kim. Hi, Heather from Kentucky. Hey, from Atlanta. Hang on. I'm having a request come up here. Hello from Ocala, awesome, Washington State. I always love doing these webinars, and I think it's so cool that we have people from really all over the world coming and learning together about horses and about riding. So hi, Russ from Arizona, awesome. Sweden, Lene from Sweden, I love it. Okay, so first of all, today's topic is flying changes. And I am so passionate about this topic because I feel like it's something that we all dream of doing is riding beautiful flying changes. And it's also something that a lot of horses and a lot of riders get stuck with teaching the flying changes or figuring out the aid for the flying changes or figuring out how to get them clean. Like there's so much that can go wrong in a flying change. So in today's webinar, I'm going to break it down for you step by step, help you understand a little bit more about what is a flying change, the aid, problem solving, the steps to go through to learn the flying changes. Let me know in the chat if you're excited and if that sounds good. A couple of important announcements. First of all, my team is here helping me out. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I will do a little Q&A at the end, although I probably won't get to everyone's question. Joellen, my amazing mother, is also here. So thank you for being here on Mother's Day, Joellen. I really do appreciate that. We are going to be going about 90 minutes today. We're going to be doing about like 45 minutes to an hour of teaching. And then I'm going to be talking about my course flying changes at the end of this program. Please turn off your distractions and get out a pen and paper to take some notes. I've worked really, really hard to put this presentation together for you today and to outline for you kind of a step-by-step process to working towards your flying changes. So I'm really excited that you are here. And this webinar is for you, whether you're not even anywhere near working on flying changes, but you really want to learn the process and the aids so that one day when you're ready, that you understand a bit more about flying changes. This webinar is also for you if you do the flying changes or if your horse knows the flying changes, but you want to improve the flying changes and make them better. So I'm really excited that you are here. Please turn off your distractions, give us your full attention. I know that you won't regret it. First of all, a little story. So one of the first horses that I taught the changes to was a horse named Trumpet. And Trumpet was this black thoroughbred, and he was the most difficult horse I've ever trained. He was like super tense and explosive. And I remember when it came time to teach him the flying changes, not only was I like scared for my life to go across the diagonal and ask him for the change, but I really didn't understand like the system or the process or the aid to give him in order to ask for the flying changes. And you know, in memory, you have like these distinct moments. And I remember my trainer, Sue, standing in front of me. I was sitting on Trumpet and she was telling me like, oh, so okay, to set up for the flying change, you have to supple him to the new side and move him off your new inside leg and then give on the new inside rein and change your legs and new outside leg goes behind the girth. And I just remember the words just like drifting over my head. It felt like she was speaking a different language and I had no idea what she was talking about. I was so confused, and I was honestly terrified of what was going to happen when I asked Trumpet to do the flying changes. So I wish that I had had a webinar or someone to like really break it down and teach it to me when I was not sitting on an explosive horse, so that I knew what to do in order to set him up and ask him for a flying change. And one thing is that I always believe that if you can break it down into a way that your horse can understand, they will do it for you. And I believe in training our horses through consistency and through kindness and through baby steps, which I'm going to show you today. Any horse can learn how to do the flying changes. It's just a matter of breaking it down step by step into a way that your horse can understand. So give me a big old thumbs up in the chat if you are excited for today. And let me go ahead and pull up and share my slides and get everything sorted the way I like it to be. Okay, so today we are talking about flying changes. And flying changes, they really are magical. They are such an incredible movement when everything goes well because they are such a test of communication with your horse. First of all, happy Mother's Day. If everyone could type in the chat, what is one thing that you learned from your mother? My mother is here in the chat, so thank you for being here today, Joellen. And I definitely learned from my mother the importance of hard work. And also, she always encouraged me to follow my dreams and to do what I love. So I would never be here today without the support of my incredible mother. And I really appreciate all of her support over the years. So go ahead and let me know in the chat, where are you on your flying change journey? So A, you're just dreaming of riding flying changes someday. B, you're trying to ride flying changes, but something's happening. C, your horse knows the changes, but you don't. Or D, you can do flying changes, but they need work. Okay, I see a lot of A's and B's. Well, awesome. It doesn't really matter what your answer was. I'm so happy that you are here today. And if you're not there yet, we're gonna talk through how to get you ready to ride the flying changes. If you are there yet, we're gonna help you problem solve some of the issues you might be having in your flying changes. My promise to you today is that by the end of this webinar, you will understand the exact steps you need to take so that you can ride flying changes on your horse. You can do this. I believe in you. Never underestimate the importance of smaller steps. And I love this ladder analogy, which is flying changes, they might feel like totally out of reach and totally unattainable. But once you break it down into these little tiny baby steps that I'm going to teach you today, you can do this. You can do a flying change on your horse. I really believe it when I say that. The photo of the horse on the right there, that's a photo of Sparky. Sparky is a POA, kill pin rescue horse. When Sparky came into training with me, I think he'd sent his owner to the hospital like 6 or 7 times. He was so naughty. He was inverted and hollow and not nice at all to ride. And Sparky learned to do the flying changes. In fact, I got Sparky all the way up to the I1, and he even did some one tempi changes. So if Sparky can learn to do flying changes, your horse can learn to do flying changes. But here's the thing. This requires action on your part. So I want you to really make a commitment and type in the chat the word action if you are committed to taking action and working towards your flying changes. Okay, I see a lot of action. Awesome, awesome. And like I said, I'm going to go out and do a flying change tomorrow, but by the end of the webinar today, you'll have some actionable things that you can work on to make progress towards your goal of one day riding a flying change. So in today's webinar, we are going to start off by talking about what is a flying change, how do you ask for one? Then I'm going to show you how any horse can learn to do a clean flying change by focusing on the basics and some key exercises. Secret number 3 is why across the diagonal is the worst place to train flying changes. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about my program Flying Changes Made Simple, which if you want to learn more, if you want more help on your flying changes, that's going to be great for you. And then we will have time for a Q&A. If you're new here, welcome. Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm so glad that you're here. My mission is dressage for all. I love working with riders all over the world of different ages and disciplines and levels and different breeds of horses, and really simplifying things, simplifying a complicated topic like dressage, like flying changes, into simple baby steps that you can take with your horse, because that really is the best approach to training. As a thank you for being here today, we are going to give you a free ride along podcast to help get you ready for the flying changes. So you can download that, plug it into your earphones next time you're riding, and I will be riding along with you. So let's start off with, what is a flying change? The flying change is performed in one stride with the front leg and hind legs changing at the same moment. The change of the leading front and hind legs takes place during the moment of suspension. And that is a definition from USEF. So hang on one second, because I put together a little video because I think it's really helpful if we can see this in slow motion. So when you slow down a flying change, it's amazing what happens. So this is my horse, Kensington. Kensington had a really hard time learning the flying changes. I think it took me like 9 months, and there was definitely a moment that I thought I told my husband, he's never going to get them. I'm going to quit. Okay, so if we look what happens in the flying change, he does the change in the moment of suspension. So he pushes off his inside front leg. He jumps up in the air. So it's going to happen on this next stride. So inside front leg on the ground, jump up in the air, and then you see the other front legs leading. So right here, he is on left lead canter. You can see left lead canter because the left front and the left hind is going forward. Then on the next stride, he's going to jump up in the air. And now his right front, see it happening right there. And now the right front and the right hind are coming forward. Now we're doing 2 tempies, 1, 2, 1, 2, and now 1 tempies, 1, 1, 1, 1. Let's rewind and watch that quickly again. I want to do a few slow-mos again for you. And it is, when you slow it down like this and you really think about the fact that, here we can see my leg goes behind the girth. He lands on that inside front. He jumps in the air. He coordinates all of his legs. Now he's on the left lead canter. So we have the 1, 2, 3 beat of the canter. And in that moment of suspension, which is coming up on the next stride, he jumps up in the air. And now he's on the right lead canter. The right hind and the right front are going forward. And then here's 2 tempies. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1 tempies, 1 tempies, 1 tempies, 1 tempies. All righty. So let me know in the chat, was that helpful to have like a little video to just have in your mind what we're talking about when we're talking about flying changes? And like I said, when you think about it and when you see a video like this, it's definitely amazing that we can teach our horse from just moving our legs to resequence all 4 of their feet in the air. Okay, I see a lot of you saying yes, yes, yes. Show it again. You can watch the recording if you want to see that video again. Okay, so let me know in the chat. I'm curious to know, what breed is your horse? Because one thing that I love about flying changes is that any horse can learn to do a flying change. And as Kira Kirkland says, a flying change is just a horse's natural way to rebalance himself. Even foals do them in the field. The trick is to get the horse to do the change when we want them to do the change. And so, like I mentioned, even Sparky, little rescue pin pony, he could even learn to do the flying changes. So what are the aids for a flying change? How was I cueing Kensington in that video to do the flying change? The main aid for the flying change is your leg position. And to make it simple, the aid for a flying change is the same as the aid for the canter. So you all let me know in the chat, can you ask your horse to canter? If you can ask your horse to canter, then it's the same exact aid to ask for a flying change, only you do it during the canter stride. So you don't have the luxury of doing it from the trot or from the walk. If we look at this photo of Kensington here, you'll notice that Kensington is in the right lead canter. So how do we know that he's in the right lead canter? Well, because that right hind and that right front are coming in front, or sorry, I'm wrong. He is in the left lead canter. So how do we know that Kensington is in the left lead canter? Is because the left front and the left hind are coming forward first. Part of why I got confused is because he's in counter canter. So he's actually in counter canter on the rail, and my right leg is back. So my right leg is behind the girth, indicating for the left lead canter. If I want Kensington to do a flying change to the right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make him a little bit supple on the right side. I'm going to move him a little bit off the right leg, and then my right leg coming forward and my left leg going back. That is the aid for the flying change. So your leg position is the primary aid for a flying change. So why are flying changes so hard? Well, here's why. You're riding along, you have this idea in your mind, like, I want to do a flying change. So that signal has to go from your brain to your leg to tell your leg to switch positions, which already that's challenging enough when you're on a horse. Then your horse has to feel your leg position change. That signal goes up to your horse's brain. And in that moment of suspension, your horse has to jump up and swap leads in midair. Sounds easy, right? This is why flying changes is so hard. That's also what makes them so magical. When you feel like your horse is so listening to you that just by changing your legs, you can change the lead and your horse does it instantaneously, it is magical. It is like the most amazing, most gratifying feeling ever. If you've ever experienced it, let me know in the chat. If you could describe what a flying change feels like, let me know what it feels like. Okay, so we've talked about what is a flying change, how do you ask for a flying change. I hope you have a little bit more clarity on that. Next, we're going to talk about the steps so that any horse, your horse, can learn to do a clean flying change. So I'd love to hear, what is your main discipline? I hope we have some Western riders or some jumper riders, because the truth of the matter is that all of these disciplines require flying changes. Okay, I see some jumpers, some eventers. And so yeah, for jumpers, right, you need to be able to do a change between the jumpers or between the jumps. If you're a reiner, the reining patterns, you have to be able to do flying changes. But it gets tricky, right? So let me know in the chat, how would you describe an exciting flying change, like a flying change that doesn't go well? This photo on the left, this is a horse, Leo. I actually documented with videos in the course, like the whole process of teaching Leo the flying changes. And I just love this photo because he's trying to figure out the flying change. He's bucking up behind and doing a handstand, and his front legs are crossed. There's always a bit of that when you are teaching your horse flying changes. The good news is I've taught dozens of horses the flying changes, and they're all a little bit different. So some of them learn them faster than others. Some of them have a tendency to anticipate or stop or buck or all of the things. But when you follow this step-by-step process, it makes it so much easier, and it really gives you a clear framework to break it down for you and your horse step by step so that you don't get scared or think it's impossible or give up. I like the iceberg analogy. So when we think about flying changes are just the tip of the iceberg. So flying changes are like the prize for all the hard work that you need to do. With an iceberg, only 10% of the ice is above water. So that's like your flying change moments of glory. Everything else is the basics. So the 90% of the ice, which is below the water and which is what allows the iceberg to float, all of that is your basics. So in order to have a good flying change, you need to spend about 90% of your time working on the basics. That means your canter quality, the collection, the activity of your canter, the throughness, the suppleness, the straightness, all of those things are what create, in the end, a good flying change. Okay, I see some of you like my iceberg analogy. So what are some of those basics? The first and most simple one is the canter rhythm. And one of the best ways to improve your canter rhythm is just to count it out loud. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's going to help you to get in the right timing to ask for the canter. And that's also going to help to improve your canter quality. So remember in the video and also in the definition of flying changes that the flying change happens during the moment of suspension. And I love this picture of Natasha. You can see how she's airborne. If you got here early, you probably saw some clips of my musical freestyle that I did with Natasha. Natasha had the best flying changes. And I was actually able to do 2 tempies on a circle into a line of 1 tempies on a straightaway. Part of why Natasha's flying changes were so good was because of her canter quality and because she had such a nice moment of suspension, which allowed for more time for the flying change to happen. So do any of you have a horse that their canter tends to be a little flat or four-beated? Or if your horse changes late behind or likes to sneak in a trot step when you ask for a flying change? Okay, I see a lot of yeses in the chat. So if that's the case, you really need to work on the canter quality and work on getting more suspension and more jump so that there's more time for your horse to do a clean flying change. Hopefully that's making sense. But if you're having trouble with your flying changes, working on the canter quality and the canter rhythm is the best way to improve your flying changes. You don't want to just keep riding bad flying change after bad flying change. And I see some of you are in the canter challenge. Awesome. There's some great videos in there to help you with your canter quality. So the next thing, prerequisite to working on the flying changes, are simple changes. If any of you are showing second level, you know that in second level, there's about 1 million simple changes. If you don't know what a simple change is, that's where you go canter, walk, canter on the other lead. So it's called a simple change because it's a prerequisite for a flying change. And what's really important with the simple changes is that you can go directly from canter to walk and back to canter. That is a test of your collection. That your horse knows easily what lead you're picking up. That your horse stays through and soft and round and responsive to the aid. The better your simple changes, the easier and the better your flying changes will be. So the good news is that if you can ride a simple change, then you're well on your way to riding a flying change. The bad news is that whatever problems you have in your walk canter walk transitions. So let me know in the chat, when you do a walk canter transition, what does your horse do? And so many things can go wrong in the walk canter transition. So I remember when I was teaching Kensington the flying changes, Kensington had a really hard time learning the flying changes, which you never would have known. Like that clip I just showed you, like, wow, his flying changes are beautiful. But when I first started teaching Kensington the flying changes, because his canter was so big and lofty and long, it was nearly impossible for him to figure out what to do with his legs to do a flying change. And I was training with Yo Hinneman. Yo Hinneman probably had me do 500 walk canter walk transitions each lesson. I might be exaggerating a little, but definitely 100. And he was so particular about everything. He told me that Kensington in the walk canter, he needs to engage his hind end, lift up his back, round his neck. He needed to be straight. He needed to react exactly when I asked from a light and soft aid. And the cool thing is that the better my walk canter transitions got, the more that I was able to perfect these transitions, then the flying changes got easier and easier. But if I had to just tried to do the flying changes before my walk canter transitions were perfect, he never would have learned them. So the bad news is that whatever problem you're having in your walk canter transition, so I see a lot of people saying my horse trots a few steps, my horse hollows, my horse's reaction is delayed. So whatever problem you're having here, it's going to be like 1,000 times worse when you ask for a flying change. And for those of you who are struggling with late flying changes, let me know in the chat if you are struggling with a late flying change. If you don't know what a late flying change is, a late flying change is where your horse changes one stride after with a hind leg. So your horse will do the flying change in front, and then they'll come like a stride or two later with the hind leg. And this is kind of a big problem in dressage, because in a dressage test, if your horse changes late behind, you're getting like a 4 or a 3. The judges are so picky about late changes because it's a sign that your horse isn't truly engaged and active behind. And also, I wanted to warn you a little bit that once your horse learns to do a late flying change, it can be really, really hard to fix. It is possible. I've had a few horses in my career that came to me with late flying changes, and I was able to fix them, but I had to work really, really hard at it because the horse gets really good at changing late behind. It's nearly impossible sometimes to feel. But bottom line is this: the better your basics, so the better your canter quality, the better the bigger the moment of suspension, the better your simple changes, that's your best bet to avoiding teaching late flying changes. And it's also the best way to fix late flying changes. So if you have a horse that changes late behind, go back and really focus on those walk canter transitions. Go back and really focus on your canter quality. You do not want to repeat a lot of late flying changes because your horse just gets better and better at them. So here's the good news, is that if you consistently practice the basics, so the walk canter transitions, even trot canter trot transitions, the more that you focus on the rhythm of the canter, then the better your flying changes become. And this is one of our students, Jennifer. She was so excited because she really focused on her basics. And then she says she got 4 out of 5 clean right to left changes, which is so fantastic. And working on your basics always pays off in training, whether you're teaching flying changes or anything. Going back to the basics, making it simple, explaining it to your horse step by step, it always, always, always pays off. And that is how you build trust. That is how you build confidence with your horse. And that truly is how you make progress with your horse, is by going back and really focusing on the basics and figuring out how you can make it simple and attainable for both you and your horse. Remember, flying changes are a natural movement. It's something that your horse knows how to do when they're free in the field. So don't make it a big deal. Break it down into baby steps. This is possible. You can do this. Definitely you can do this. And, you know, when I was first learning and teaching horses changes, I had no idea. I really didn't have a system. I didn't know the steps to take. I didn't know the patterns to take. And that was hard. It was frustrating. I remember feeling like I'm never going to be able to teach the horse the changes. I should just give up. This isn't possible. But all of that was because I really didn't understand the steps to take to make it possible. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you believe that your horse can do a flying change? I want you to type in the chat and be honest. It's okay if you say no. I see a lot of yeses. Okay. Okay. I see one person says no. So Renee and Icarus, Hannah and Valiente, these are two of my students. Hannah and Valiente. Valiente was tricky to teach the changes to. I'm not sure if Hannah's here today, but I definitely admire her. You know, she really has taken the time, focused on the basics, worked on her canter quality, worked on those walk canter transitions, done a bunch of different exercises with Valiente, and he's finally getting the changes. And I think we all, like for those of you who said no, it's normal. When I was teaching Kensington the flying changes, there was a day that I just had this super frustrating ride and I couldn't get the changes. And I remember going home and telling my husband, like, this just is never going to happen. I think I should just give up on Kensington. And you look at him today and he's, you know, learning the one tempies and his flying changes are beautiful. And he often gets 8 on his flying changes. So sometimes it is darkest before the dawn. Alrighty, so number one, we've gone over what is a flying change, how do you ask? We've talked about how to break it down into these like baby steps and focus on the basics so any horse can learn to do a clean flying change. Let me know in the chat if you are feeling a little bit more clarity about what is a flying change and how to ask for one. I see a lot of yeses. The next part of this presentation is really important to me because I feel like a lot of times when it comes time to do a flying change, sometimes we just go across the diagonal and ask and expect it to happen. And there's kind of a disconnect between like, okay, I've done all the basics. Now I need to figure out the right pattern or the right placement to ask my horse for a flying change. And I remember there was a lesson I took with a German trainer, and I was really struggling. I don't even remember what horse it was on, but it was the day before a show, and I couldn't get the changes. And he just kept saying, diagonal, do it again, diagonal, do it again, diagonal, do it again. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that, but it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I got really upset and my horse was really upset and my horse didn't understand what I wanted. And the diagonal, like the long diagonal, wasn't helping because it wasn't helping me to organize or balance my horse. My horse was anticipating, like, I definitely have a little bit of trauma there. And so I don't want you to have that same trauma. So I'd like to give you a few little different exercises or patterns that can set your horse up for the flying changes, if that would be okay for you. So there always is this moment where you say, okay, I listened to Amelia. I have my iceberg analogy in my mind. And you think, okay, my basics are good. Like the canter quality is good. I have suspension. I have some adjustability. I mean, there's a lot more basics. I didn't cover all of them or we would be here all day. But the biggest one is those simple changes. So you really feel like you can go canter, left lead, walk, canter, right lead, walk, canter, left lead. Your horse is round, your horse is listening. And there's that time that you have to ask for a flying change. And it is scary, but it's like babies learning to walk. You know, you got to crawl first, and then sometime you're going to have to walk. Here's a good statistic. Babies fall an average of 17 times per hour when they are learning to walk. So that is there for all of you mothers here celebrating Mother's Day with us today. But so there is that time where you do have to try and ask for a flying change because that's like information gathering. Like you get all your basics good and then you're like, okay, I'm going to try and ask for a flying change. I'm going to see what happens. And then based on what happens, then you can go back and make your basics even better. The worst thing you can do is counter canter your horse forever because the longer you wait to ask for a flying change, the harder it is because your horse doesn't really believe that they should do flying changes. So I hope that so far that this is making sense to you, kind of the structure and the steps that you need to take to teach your horse a flying change. It would be great if you could give me a yes, I'm with you. This is making sense in the chat. Okay. Emily says yes. Judy says yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay. So next thing, when you ask for a flying change, what does your horse do? And I know there's a lot of apprehension because in your mind, you're like, okay, I think we're ready. We have all the basics, but there's always that fear of, what if my horse bucks? What if my horse bolts? What if my horse, goes crooked? Like there's all of those things that could happen. And, I'm not gonna lie, there definitely is a learning curve and horses do go through some of that stuff. But I hope that with some of the patterns I can and exercises I can show you, you'll be able to avoid a lot of that. So rather than just like I said, you're not going to just keep going across the diagonal, smacking your horse and hoping that it happens. We're going to instead really go back to the basics, go back to some simple patterns so that we can help our horse to understand what it is that we want them to do, so that we can help our horse to understand how to organize their body so that they don't need to buck or they don't need to run off or they don't need to do all of these things. These were some photos of our students. So Emily says her horse goes croup high. My horse kicks out. My horse leaps in the air. Again, all of this stuff is your horse trying to figure it out or your horse not really being set up correctly. And like I mentioned, we're not going to just go across the diagonal and pray that it happens. This is a quote from our student Celia, and she says she was a hunter jumper rider. So in the hunter world, they would just have you canter across the diagonal over a pole and hope that you got a change. So I'm going to get to it now. What you need is you need a toolkit full of several different patterns, several different exercises that will set your horse up better for a flying change. This pattern over here on the left, this is what I call the shallow loop serpentine. This is my favorite exercise to teach the horse the flying changes. And the reason that this exercise is helpful is because the curvature of the serpentine helps to make your horse supple and set your horse up for the new lead. It also helps because you're going to be asking for the flying change. So the star, you're going to be asking for the flying change as you come back towards the rail. So as you're headed into the corner, that's going to help to half halt and regulate your horse after you ask for the flying change. For the shallow loop serpentine, here's what you're going to do. So you're going to start at A. So we're going to start in the right lead canter at A. The empty stars, so the stars with the white in the middle, that's a simple change. So we're going to go right lead canter, walk. Left lead canter out to the letter X. Then as we come back to the rail, we're going to walk and pick up right lead canter. So with all these patterns, you want to start with simple changes. And you use the simple changes to mark the spot where later on you're going to ask for the flying change. That's really important. So I hope that you heard that. So you're going to use the simple changes to mark the spot where later on you'll ask for the flying change. If I'm on a new horse that is just learning the changes, I'm going to do this simple change, or I'm going to do the shallow loop serpentine exercise with simple changes, probably for a few weeks until my horse really understands the pattern with simple changes. Remember, simple changes are canter, walk, canter. Then, once my horse understands it with the simple changes, I'm going to ask for the flying change where that blue star is. So as I'm coming back to the rail, I'm going to ask for the flying change. If your horse doesn't do the flying change, you're not going to panic. You're just going to walk and pick up the canter again. This is so important. So I hope that you really soak that in. But it's really important that you have patterns like this one. This is just one example. I use a lot of different patterns depending on your horse's needs, whether they anticipate or they run off or they get crooked. I have a bunch more in my flying changes course, But this is just an example of how important it is to really break things down step by step so that your horse can understand. And I remember I started clinicking with a guy named Morten Thompson. So he's from Denmark, he's an Olympian. And Morten was all about how do you really break it down so that your horse understands it? So rather than my horse didn't do the change, well, I need to ask harder, I need to kick harder, I need to, how can we break it down into these steps so that your horse understands the aid? Because I truly believe that if your horse understands it, they will do it for you. Horses are incredibly honest. They're incredibly amazing creatures. So this is one of our students, Flavin. She has a horse that anticipates and gets tense. And so she found that the snowman pattern with counter canter worked best for her horse. And you definitely need, you need to know a lot of different patterns and exercises when you're teaching the changes. Because what happens is that your horse starts to anticipate, like they learn the pattern, which is good to a point. But then when they start to anticipate or you have a different problem, you need a different exercise to solve that. So you need to change the exercise at that point. So this is one of our other students. Rita says, I've been doing your exercises religiously. Today I tried the changes from the shallow loop. The first time I've gotten clean changes in both directions easily without rushing afterwards. And she says, thank you. So with these exercises and patterns, it's less likely that your horse will explode or bolt or run off or do all of those crazy things. When you follow, you get your basics right, you do the simple changes first, then you ask for the flying change. And part of why I'm so passionate about this topic of teaching the flying changes is because I feel like there's such a knowledge gap where people get frustrated and the horse gets frustrated and they don't know really how to break it down. And then unfortunately, a lot of horses get stuck. Like they're never able to learn the flying changes or they're never able to get past second level. For those of you who ride dressage, in order to move past second level, you do need to teach a flying change, and it shouldn't be a limiting factor. It's just a matter of really understanding the right formula and the right steps to take so that you and your horse can really understand it. So let's talk about problems. So let's say you've done all of this and it's still not working. Again, a lot of trainers, like the one I mentioned, would just be like, do it again, ask harder, to the point that you or your horse might get frustrated or stuck or confused or scared. But for me, what I do is I go back to the basics and I try to analyze the root cause of the problem. And then going back to your walk canter transitions and fixing it there, fixing it with a simple exercise that you and your horse can understand, that you and your horse can do easily. That is the best solution to working on the flying changes or to getting a clean flying change. And I remember that never goes away. My horse Harvey, we were getting ready to show the Grand Prix and we were having some difficulty with the one tempi changes. And I was in a lesson with Yo, and I so admire Yo because we were getting all confused and frazzled in the one tempis, and he was like, just go back, canter left lead, walk, canter right lead, walk, canter left lead, walk, canter right lead, walk. We did that for a few minutes, and then the signals were working again, and then we were able to do the one tempis. And that's so important that you're just willing to take that time and go back to something a bit more simple so that your horse can re-understand the aids, and also to give yourself that time where you can just think about, okay, what aids do I actually need to give my horse for the flying changes? Because I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes we all get a little frazzled knowing that for the flying change to work, your aid has to be perfect in the correct timing. Your horse has to be perfectly set up. And if that's not happening, the change isn't going to happen. So by going back to the basics, it gives you and your horse an opportunity to reset and an opportunity, honestly, to be more successful. So remember, if your horse doesn't change, don't get emotional or upset or desperate. You go back to the basics. And flying changes are all about the basics. When you're working on teaching the flying changes, 90% of your time is okay. What problem am I having in my changes? Okay, I'm going to work on the basics. I'm going to go back and work on the canter quality or the walk canter transitions. Once your basics are better, you try a flying change. But so many riders get desperate and they just obsess over the flying change and they forget to work on the basics. And then that's why it doesn't happen. That's why your horse doesn't understand. When you follow this system, when you really focus, when you really go back to the basics, flying changes don't need to be this big thing. They don't need to be scary. They don't need to be stressful. I love this quote from Kathy. She says, flying changes turn my brain into porridge and my pony into a steam train, like the blind leading the blind, the two of us trying to learn them at the same time. And definitely, Kathy, we have all been there. I've definitely been there with many, many horses, especially when you're learning. Like you've never ridden a flying change, or your horse doesn't know flying changes, or maybe your horse does know flying changes, but you don't know how to ask. But really, the best solution is, like I said, to break it down. And remember that the aid for a flying change is the same as the aid for the canter. It's not any different. It is the exact same aid. The tricky part is that you're no longer doing it from the walk or the trot. But just keep in your mind whenever things start to get like complicated or stressful like that, the more that you can go back and fix and perfect your canter transition, whether it's a trot canter transition or a walk canter transition, the better those transitions, the better your flying changes. I'll tell you a quick story. A student of mine, she's currently showing second level, and her horse is like very green, like kind of started the changes, but definitely not confirmed. And so I was teaching her, and her trot canter transitions weren't clear enough. He was kind of doing this like half trot, half canter. He wasn't exactly on her aid. Sometimes he would anticipate, sometimes he would do it a stride late. And I told her, I said, let's just work on your trot canter trots. Let's get those really, really precise. And that's going to help you with your flying change. So I wanted to put that in there as a little encouragement for those of you who are feeling like, I'm nowhere near working on flying changes. I'm happy to be here, but I'm nowhere near this point. Work on your trot canter trots. It will pay off. The more precise you are with your aids, the more responsive and soft and round that you can keep your horse. All of that is laying the foundation for when one day you are ready to start working on those flying changes. So let me know in the chat, are you seeing how with these smaller steps, riding the changes is possible? I hope that, I've really taken this down so it shouldn't feel so out of reach. Of course, there's definitely a lot of work and that consistent training and that discipline for every single transition. But don't let flying changes hold you back from reaching your dreams. Any horse can learn to do a flying change, and you as a rider, you can do this. You can learn it. If you know how to ask for the canter, then it's just a matter of refining that aid and understanding the timing and feeling the footfalls, and it is the same exact aid for a flying change. Yes, I see Tracy says patience. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I know I threw a lot at you. We've been going for about 50 minutes now. I would like to take a moment, if it would be okay, to talk about my program, Flying Changes Made Simple. So if you want a little more help with implementing some of the exercises that I've talked about, with understanding more about the basics that you need to be thinking about now in order to get ready for your flying changes, if you could type in the chat, if you'd give me a yes, if you'd like to hear a bit more about the program. I put this photo here of the horse because I remember when I was learning the flying changes, it was overwhelming. And I was just like, what? Inside leg, outside leg, inside rein. I was so confused. Okay, I see a lot of yeses. So what I've done is, since this is something I'm so passionate about teaching, And since I know a lot of horses and a lot of riders don't have a structure and don't know the exercises, I've compiled it all into my course, Flying Changes Made Simple, so that I can really help you step by step understand how to teach your horse flying changes the right way so that you can have flying changes that are clean, correct, and on the aids. So this course is for you, whether you're just working on the basics, you want to improve your canter, or if you're already teaching the changes, if you have a schoolmaster, your horse knows the changes, but you don't know the changes, if your horse changes late or bucks or bolts or anticipates. Really, this course is all about flying changes from start to finish. And it's a way deeper view into what we've covered today. Like I covered the 5,000-foot view of flying changes today. There's no way that I can teach everything you need to know about flying changes in the 50 minutes that we've been here. So the first part of this course is all the flying changes theory. So this is how to ask for a flying change. When are you ready? Which lead should you start on first? Giving you the timeline and the expectations and really breaking it down for you step by step, the theory and the system to use to teach your horse the flying changes. And I've taught a lot of horses the flying changes. I've taught a lot of students the flying changes. Callie's one of our students, and she says she was intimidated to ask for the flying change, as I think a lot of us are. But this course breaks it down step by step, shows you where to start and exactly what steps you need to take in order to have that successful flying change. So the next part of the course is all about the basic exercises. So this is the iceberg, right? This is getting all that ice there so that you can have a successful flying change. I talked about a few of those basics today, but inside the course, I show you all the basics and really help you to understand how precise you need to be with the basics. Because you might say, oh, well, Amelia, I can do a trot canter transition. Well, it's probably not good enough yet. Or I can do a walk canter, or I can do counter canter. We really want to perfect these basics and analyze any problems that we might have in the basics so that you can be successful when you ask for the flying change. This is a photo of my horse Achilles. And you can see some of our scores here. We were getting, oh, I don't think you can see my scores. We were getting like 50s at, there we go. We were getting 57 at second level test 1. And I really wanted to do third level. I really wanted to teach Achilles how to do the flying changes. We never got to third level, but I know if I had like if I'd worked on the basics and if I had really understood the importance of the basics, I could have gotten Achilles up to third level. So Laura says, Laura took the course. She was just working on her basics, but she says we're making big improvements in the counter canter. And the canter quality is also improving greatly. So even if you're not ready to do flying changes, this course is really going to help you to improve the quality of the canter. And so I definitely encourage you, if you're not there yet, this course is going to set you up for success if your goal is to do a flying change, if your goal is that you want to do third level or you want to get your bronze medal. Paula took the course. She wasn't quite ready to start with the flying changes, but she got a more engaged uphill and active canter. So use this course as motivation to improve the quality of your canter, your connection, your engagement, all of that. Here's another one of our students, Ulcry. She was struggling with her change to the left. Her horse was anticipating. She went back to the basics, clarified her aids, and was able to get a clean change. This really does work. Like this system and the framework and the basics, it really does work and it will help you to get that clean, beautiful flying change that you're dreaming of. Okay, so I'm going to give you a really good deal because you're here today, but I want to go through everything that's in the course. So like I said, we have the flying changes theory, total value $399. We have the basic exercises valued at $399, total value $798, which when I consider how many lessons I took, how much I paid for lessons to get these exercises down, that's just a fraction of it. Next thing you need, so you have your basics, you have you're understand the framework, how we're going to work on the changes. Next thing you need these patterns. So I mentioned a few of them today. I saw there were a lot of questions about the details of these exercises. Inside the course, I give you 8 of the best patterns to teach your horse the flying changes. So these are exercises that I learned from Yo Hinneman, Stefan Peters, Carl Hester, Conrad Schumacher, Morton Thompson, like some of the best trainers in the world. I've clinicked with them, I've ridden with them. It seems like each trainer has a little bit of a different favorite exercise to teach the flying changes. I've also noticed that when you're training the changes, some exercises work better than others for different horses or different riders. And then you also need a big toolbox, because what happens is that your horse starts to anticipate and they start to know, like, oh my gosh, you're going to ask for the change here. And then you need to change up the pattern and do something different. So all of those exercises are detailed for you inside of the course. And when I was first here in California, I was like living in the tack room eating oatmeal because I had no money, but I would always go and take clinics and take lessons and work with some of the best trainers in the world so that I could learn these exercises, because these exercises are gold. When you understand these exercises and how to implement them and how to modify them, they are the key to really teaching your horse how to do the flying changes. And like I said, there's a whole toolbox of exercises in there that I've learned from various trainers throughout my career. So Hannah, she took the Flying Changes Made Simple course, and her PRE, hang on, I know I'm blocking that. So her PRE would really, really start to anticipate the flying changes. And so she really liked that the course had so many different exercises, because that way, when she would have her horse would start anticipating one pattern, she could just switch it up and do a different pattern. And that is so important, that you have some variety in the exercises that you're teaching. I've also put together all of these exercises into this awesome PDF cheat sheet. So with diagrams, you can print this out, you can take it to the barn or just pull it up on your phone. We outline it here, we show you what lead to be on and where to ask for the flying change. And this can be really helpful, especially if it's still a bit overwhelming. If you've never done the changes before, or you have trouble remembering what you've learned at home when you go to the barn. So that cheat sheet will definitely help you out. Okay, so here's what we have so far. We have the theory, the exercises, the patterns, total value $1,795. Like I said, I've probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lessons. Actually, I did the math once. And I wish I'd have known this when I was first teaching changes. Inside of the course are real life flying changes. So I'm not just riding Natasha with her perfect one tempi changes. I actually show teaching the changes. So this horse here bucking up behind, I kind of show you inside the course the whole process of teaching the changes, of confirming the changes on him, how I adjust and adapt the exercises when he starts to anticipate, what to do on a day. There's actually a lesson in there called what to do when the unicorn won't fly. And that was a day where it was like, I wanted to work on the changes and it just wasn't going to happen. He was too anticipating. We worked on the basics instead. So kind of outlining the whole journey. Go ahead and let me know, when you ask for a flying change, what does your horse do? So does your horse change late? Does your horse run off? Does your horse buck? Does your horse not respond at all? Okay, I see Simone says running, lifts his head up, bucks, I'm not quite ready, falls into the trot. So there's an entire section in the course that's all about troubleshooting. And this is where I help you understand, okay, if your horse is anticipating, go back and do this. If your horse is changing late behind, go back and do this. If your horse bucks, go back and do this. Because you need to understand why that's happening and then figure out which exercise is going to be the best to help your horse. So here's what we have so far. We have the theory, the exercise, the basic exercises, the patterns for teaching the flying changes, troubleshooting the flying changes, total value $2,792. I do have a special coupon code for you today. So next, you confirmed your single flying changes. Yay. Time to move on to tempi changes, half pass zigzags, one tempis. Has anyone here started doing tempi changes? That is definitely where it gets super fun, and also your timing gets extra important. So Renee took the course, and she was starting to work on her tempi changes. It was something that she's always struggled with. So inside the course, I really break it down and teach you how to count the tempi changes, how to problem solve with the tempi changes. And then I was so happy for Renee. She actually got some 8s in her test on her flying changes, which is just such a cool celebration, I think. I always love helping and seeing success like this, like seeing students that can get the flying changes. Okay, so we have the theory, we have the basic exercises, the patterns, the troubleshooting, the advanced flying changes exercises. Total value $3,641, but that's not all. So everyone has been loving these ride along podcasts. So what I did is I recorded several sessions of me working on these different exercises to teach the flying changes. So that's going to be great. You can plug the podcast in your ear while you're riding. You can listen in, and I take you through like an entire warm up and then help you to implement the exercise with your horse. So it's kind of like if you were in a lesson with me, I would be giving you that same instruction. And here's the thing, I want you to be successful. So the course has over 45 pre-recorded video exercises. So you get access to all of that when you sign up today. You also get lifetime access and any improvements that we make. So if you signed up for this course a year or two ago, check it out again. Check out the podcast, check out the cheat sheet with the exercises. It's all in there for you. There is also a mobile app, and there is that PDF for you to download and take to the barn. So here's everything that's inside the course. We have the theory, the basic exercises, the patterns, the troubleshooting section, the advanced flying changes section, the ride along podcast, total value $3,641. Like I said, I probably spent in the tens of thousands of dollars in lessons to learn all of this, but I'm grateful for that. So let me ask you this. If all flying changes made simple did was to improve the quality of your canter and your canter transition, would it be worth it? What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Yes, if this motivated you to really get more jump and throughness and roundness. Okay, I see some yeses. And now I've lost it. Okay, if all this course did was to give you the confidence to try a flying change, would that be worth it? Would it be worth it to feel like, yeah, I can do this. I can do a flying change. I hope I've already given you that to you today, that you're feeling like, yes, me and my horse can do this. If all it did was to confirm your flying changes, would that be worth it? I see some yeses. So this is one of our students, Rita. She says, I've been doing your changes, your exercises religiously. The first time I have gotten clean changes in both directions easily without rushing afterwards. Isn't that cool? I love that. And I love that I'm able to help riders like Rita to get the flying changes to happen easily with their horses. Okay, so like I mentioned, there's over $3,000 of value easily inside of this program. The normal price of this course is $499. But because you are here today, because it's Mother's Day, I want to give you an additional $100 off when you sign up for Flying Changes Made Simple this week only. So today, click the link below, head over to amelianewcomb-dressage.com/flying changes course, and you can get all of this today for just $399. There's also a payment plan option where you can get started today for $173 plus 2 additional monthly payments. And like I said at the beginning, I'm so passionate about flying changes, and I feel like so many horses and riders get stuck, and there's not a lot of good information about the real system for how to teach the flying changes. And I've really put together all of that inside of this program to help you step by step work your way towards those flying changes. If you want an extra bonus, sign up before the end of this webinar and we will automatically add on my half halt workshop. So this workshop is all about teaching you what is a half halt, how to be effective with your half halt. There's a demo that I do with a long horse versus a short coupled horse, young horses, older horses. And remember that you do need to have an effective half halt in order to ride a flying change. So definitely sign up before the end of this call so that we can give you the half halt workshop with your course. Also, another bonus is if you feel like you need more help and you'd like to send in a video of you working on the changes with your horse so that I can take a peek and tell you exactly which exercises to focus on for your horse. You do need to sign up before Wednesday to get that bonus. But I would say, if you're interested in the course, sign up now so that you can get your half halt workshop and send in a little video clip so I can take a peek and let you know what I think you need to focus on. And I know a lot of you in the chat are saying, Amelia, I'm not ready for flying changes yet. Well, let me ask you this. Is flying changes a goal of yours? Like, even if it's a big, audacious, hairy goal, if it's something that you think, I don't really know if I could ever ride a flying change, but I want to one day with my horse. I would say take the course because the bulk of the course is all about those basic exercises. The bulk of the course is about getting you ready and giving you those baby steps, taking you towards your goal of the flying changes. And, there's so much evidence that I was just listening to an audiobook today, think big and you will be amazed at what you can achieve. And like I said, even if all this course did was to really inspire you to improve your canter and the canter transition, when you take these baby steps, before you know it, you will be ready to do a flying change. I checked my online platform yesterday and we just got over 10,000 online students, which is incredible. So I want to thank all of you that have taken one of my courses in the past or been a part of this community. It's just amazing. And I am so grateful to all of you. And I'm so amazed that online training does work. That, you can sit here in your home and you can listen to a webinar like this and you can watch videos and you can think about it and you can study and you go out and you work on it and then you have questions and you come back and you send us your videos and we can actually help you online. And I never thought that it would be possible. And you all have proved it. So I want to just thank you. This is Crassy, one of our students. She says, Amelia's worth 10 trainers. I've saved thousands on lessons. But seriously, it's because you do the work, you're dedicated, you're committed, you're passionate about your riding. You want this so badly. And this is a really great way of learning where you can learn in the comfort of your home, on demand, at your convenience, and then really have that clear plan for when you go out to the barn next time. So one last little push here, 2 choices. You can either take what you've learned today. I gave you a lot of awesome stuff to think about for your flying changes, and I really packed in the value for you. Or give it a try and try Flying Changes Made Simple. There is a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you're kind of on the fence, either type your question in the chat and I'll try to answer your question about whether or not this course would work for you. Or I would say just give it a try. We do have a 30-day money back guarantee and we hold strong to that. That means you can take a look inside the course, see what's in there. If you decide hey, Amelia, this isn't for me, you just email us, Lexi, at support@Amelia Newcomb Dressage, and we will give you your money back. There's no way that I would have learned this system if I hadn't invested in really good instruction, in really good trainers, even at a time in my life when I really couldn't afford it. And I'm just so grateful that I now have this framework and this system and all these different exercises and ways to problem solve so that I have the confidence that I can teach pretty much any horse how to do the flying changes. So I do encourage you, of course, you're determined, you can work at it alone, but I know that with this course, you're going to have so much more help and education to really implement what we've learned today. Here's one of our students, Shaughnessy, and I was just so proud of her. She got a 61% on third level test two. And that is such a big hurdle, moving from second level up to third level when you have flying changes. And she says, totally worth it if flying changes is a goal for you. So, yeah, I'm just really proud of her and her horse and working towards her bronze medal, which is so fantastic. Remember that working on flying changes is not linear. So there's like good days and there's bad days. And with Kensington, definitely sometimes there's this beginner's luck where you ask the first few times, your horse does it, but then your horse starts anticipating and things go bad again. And there's some up and down, and some horses take longer than others. And this course really is about supporting you through the good times and the bad in your flying changes journey. Because when you're struggling and you want to give up, we don't want that to happen. So this is Renee. She says, I've been struggling. We got 2 clean changes the other day and then none today, maybe. So there definitely is a little bit of emotional support that goes along inside this course. And like I said, I show you real life training the flying changes. So I show you days where I'm like, oh, I'm going to film for my flying changes course. And then it doesn't go well. And how do you handle that? And what do you do? And how do you not just get so frustrated with yourself or with your horse that you want to give up? So believe in your horse. There is a clean flying change in there. No one thought that Sparky, the little Appy, or Kensington would be able to do flying changes. And, I just think that's so important that you really need to believe it's possible. You need to believe in your horse. You need to believe in yourself. And then you need to have the education to really understand how to break it down step by step so that you can train your horse with consistency and also with kindness and understanding to help them figure out what to do with their legs in order to get a flying change. So remember that you save $100 on the course when you join before Sunday. There is a coupon code applied. So I'll have my team put the link in the chat that you can click. Head over now. Remember, you want to get your half halt bonus. So sign up before the end of today. And when you scroll down, you'll see that the coupon code, which is $100 off, that is applied. So since it's Mother's Day weekend, and I wanted to just give you an extra good deal so you can get the entire course today for just $399. And oh, yeah, the Ride Along podcast. I will have my team put that link for you in the chat. So that is a free bonus. Thank you for being here today on a Sunday on Mother's Day. These webinars are always so fun. And I really do hope that I gave you a lot of value and that you were able to understand a bit more of the system to teach your horse the flying changes. So I do have a little bit of time for a Q&A. I wanted to see if we have any questions, and then I also might show you a little bit inside the course. Let me know in the chat if you guys would like to take a quick look inside the course. Do we have any questions, Lexi, that I should answer? We'll do about 10 minutes of Q&A.
Perfect. Yeah, we're getting some yeses that people would love to see inside the course. So let's
Okay.
start with that, Amelia. We've also got some people signing up and joining us. So yay, Beth, Sarah, Renee, Kelly, Robert, Lisa, so many great people joining us.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to work with all of you. And like I said, this is like a passion project of mine. I didn't really tell my team when I first made this course. So, all right, so here's the checkout page. This is what it will look like. You just put in your information. You'll get instant access. You can see the coupon code is there. So it's actually going to be $3.99. There's a few additional add-ons which are optional. You do not have to get those. Once you sign up, so check your email and there'll be an email that helps you to set up your account at Amelia's Dressage Academy, or you may already have an account if you've taken a course from me before. This is what the course looks like on the inside. So you can see there's an introduction, there's the ride along podcast, there's the cheat sheet, there's some office hour recordings of me teaching other students, which can be really helpful. There is a lot of content inside of this course, which is why you have lifetime access to it. So you're not in a time crunch to do all of it. The first part of the course is all about what is the flying change and the aids. We have the ride along podcast and the cheat sheet. Second part of the course is all about the basics, the prerequisite exercises. I talked about a few of them today, but there's a lot more that you really want to work on. Then we have those exercises, which I told you about, that you need to have several different exercises. So when your horse anticipates, you can change the exercise. And then we have our troubleshooting section. So like I mentioned, this is not just perfect horses. This is horses learning the flying changes because that's more relatable for where you are with your horse. And then the last section is the advanced. So the tempi changes. I saw someone ask in the chat, what is a tempi change? So that's when you count. So you do a change every 4 strides or every 3 strides. If you saw that video of Kensington doing the changes at the beginning, he was doing 3 tempis, 2 tempis, and then 1 tempis. That's where you change legs every single stride. So that is a quick peek inside of the course. Other questions, Lexi?
Yeah, we've gotten a few questions come in about the counter canter specifically. So, can you share? Some of us maybe don't know what that is. So, what is that and why is that a prerequisite for flying changes? And then, when we're training flying changes, should we stop working on the counter canter because it's confusing, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so there's a left lead and a right lead canter. And the trick about the flying change is being able to get your horse to go from one lead to the other lead in midair. And usually, if you're making a circle to the left, you want to be on left lead canter because that's your horse's natural balance point. So counter canter is a test of your horse's balance and it's a test of your horse's straightness in the canter. So for counter canter, you're going to be on left lead canter, but you're going to be turning to the right. And so it is a prerequisite for flying changes in the sense that it's a test of whether your horse is really balanced enough and understanding the aids enough to get ready for the change. But there is a little caveat with that, which is that if your horse does a lot of counter canter, sometimes they get so comfortable in the canter that it's hard to get them to switch leads onto the correct lead. And we help you inside the course, like understanding, okay, how much counter canter do you need to do? And then when would be a good time to start working on those fine changes?
The diagnosing of how to help your horse and problem solve is such a helpful piece, I think.
Yeah.
With that in mind, we had riders from all different backgrounds joining us today, which is exciting and all different levels. So, for those of us who maybe aren't quite ready for flying changes and are working on improving the quality of our canter, like you talked about, how do we know when we're riding a truly good quality canter? What does that feel like?
What does it feel like? That's always such a hard question because it's kind of like trying to explain to someone what strawberry jam tastes like when they've never tasted it. But I guess a couple of things for when you know you have a good canter is when your canter should feel really easy. I think that's like the easiest way to say it is when it kind of just feels like you can sit up there, your hands are quiet, your seat's connected. You could ask questions, like you could go a little forward, you could come a little back, you could make a smaller circle, you can go straight, you could counterflex a little. That really is when you have that adjustability and that balance and that harmony in the canter. And then the other thing is really your transition into the canter. Because remember how I told you that the aid for a flying change is the same as the aid for the canter. So your canter transition, if you're going trot and you want to ask your horse to canter, it should just be like 1 second preparation, inside leg at the girth, outside leg behind the girth, your horse canters. If it takes you like 5 circles to get ready for the canter transition and you have to do a lot of monkeying, like inside leg, getting your horse ready, then you're probably not ready for the flying changes because remember that the flying change happens in a millisecond when your horse is lifting off the ground. And so your horse needs to be very finely tuned to a small aid and that they're able to listen right away because if it takes so much preparation for you even just to pick up the canter, then you'll have lost that moment in the flying change. So that is why, in the course, I really break it down and I help you understand how to perfect your canter transitions and your canter aid so that you're ready for the flying change.
That's why it's so magical. In one stride, all of it happening. We had some questions. So, Emily in the chat was asking specifically about the timing of the leg aids, like you're saying, Amelia. We also had several people talking about maybe getting late changes from their horse or rushing through changes. Is that content covered in this course, or do you have any advice for working with horses who are late behind or rushing through changes?
Yes. So definitely in that troubleshooting section, I go through and there is a horse that changes late behind and I video it and I kind of talk through what exercises and what patterns I go back to really help fix that late flying change. And then same thing with horses that anticipate and rush. That is where all those patterns and exercises are really helpful. Because if you can use the shape like a circle line or a bending line to help a horse that rushes, that's way more effective than just like, hang on, don't and pull. And that's why one big point I made today was that just the diagonal line doesn't really set you up very well for a flying change because you just have this long straightaway and it doesn't give you or your horse a good opportunity to rebalance, half out back to the hind leg, change the bend, and then ask for that flying change. So that is where, all the different exercises and patterns that are inside the course can be really, really helpful. And then definitely with late flying changes, if you can avoid creating problems when you're teaching the flying changes, that's the best. And that's part of what this course is going to help you to understand is the right steps to take. Because once you have a problem in the flying changes, like your horse has learned to change late behind, or your horse has learned to just run off after, it's more difficult to fix. So I'm not saying that you can't fix it because you definitely can. But if you can set you and your horse up for success and do it correctly the first time, that really is going to be the best in the long term.
And maybe a huge reason to think about purchasing this course now before you're ready for the changes until after we accidentally set up some of those mistakes.
Yeah, because it's always better too if you're learning this stuff and if like already from today, you should have a better idea of how to set your horse up, how to ask like what you need to do to get ready for it. And so if you can be learning ahead of where you currently are, then guess what? When your trainer says, okay, let's try a change, or when you feel like you're ready, you already know in your brain, like, here's how to set my horse up, here's how I need to ask. And that really is the value in this program and in just online training overall. So do remember, sign up today if you want to get the half halt bonus. You do need to sign up. Like, we'll give you maybe an extra like 10 minutes or so. I'll have my team put that link in the chat. There is a 30-day money back guarantee, so you can try it out. And if you feel like it's too advanced for you, no worries. We'll always give you your money back. And yeah, it's just a great course. Have we had any other people sign up in the last few minutes, Lexi?
Yes, we have. Let's see. We've got Jennifer, we've got Teresa, we've got Lisa, Michelle,
Awesome.
Kim, Vanessa. Lots of good people joining us, which is exciting.
Very cool. All right, let's do one more question.
All right, one more question. So you were mentioning the patterns and figures included in the course, which is awesome. There were some questions about how to ride all those. So I also want to say that inside our courses, there's written descriptions as well as a video of Amelia riding all of those exercises and patterns, which is super helpful. But there were some questions specifically about walk, canter, transition specifically, since that's such a big piece and foundation. How many strides of walk are you aiming for when you're doing those walk canter transitions, Amelia?
Yeah, so for the simple changes, when you're going canter, walk, canter on the other lead, if you're doing it in a test, so if you're doing like a second level test, ideal is 4 to 5 walk steps because you do want to show that you can clearly establish the rhythm of the walk, that you go canter, walk 4 or 5 steps, canter on the other lead. when you're practicing for the flying changes, sometimes I like to do even less and less walk steps where you go like canter, walk, maybe even just one or two steps, and then quickly canter on the other lead. Because the more that you can kind of like close that timing window, where it gets to the point that you almost don't need any walk steps, then that's a flying change. So a flying change is a simple change. Oh, our time is up.
That was the flying change that
Yes.
happened.
So a flying change is just canter, walk, canter, only you're not doing the walk. So the less walk steps you can get, the closer you are to doing the flying change. And really focus that first stride of canter after the walk is really active and on your aids, because that's the aid for the flying change. So it's pretty cool how everything is just like broken down into these smaller steps. And that really is why it is possible to teach your horse the changes. You just have to know how to break it down for them and also for you.
Yes. We had lots of realizations of that in the chat too. Of yes, my horse can do it. I just need to figure out how to ask them correctly, which is great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your help, Lexi. Thank you all for being here. Happy Mother's Day. I know my mother was here in the chat. I'm so grateful to her. I actually got to teach her how to do flying changes on my horse Geronimo, which was really, really fun. So have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. You do have a week to get the $100 off. So, but I do encourage you, if you want to get the bonus, where you can send in a video to me and the half halt workshop, please sign up today and have a wonderful day. Bye.